So rumours are swirling once again about Christian Horner going to Ferrari or Aston Martin. And both of those are more realistic options than you may think at face value. Especially Aston Martin, I know people believe that there's no reason for him to go there, but also Ferrari. But I still think in my heart that it's going to be Alpine, and here's why. So the rumours over the last couple of days have been fiery about Horner's next stop. And realistically, I think there's a good chance we won't really know where Horner goes until the first couple of races in 2026. Not only because his gardening leave ends pretty much after the first three races, but also because that is the ideal time for him to strike and get the best offer. And I think unless we get some sort of crazy deal floated his way between now and then, I could see it kind of spawning on till then as he decides what to do. But the two teams that have been discussed over the past while have been Aston Martin and Ferrari. Now, let's talk about Ferrari first, because I thought this was the most unlikely, but it seems like there is some real rumors that this could happen, some real evidence that there might be talks going on here. Now, first is that Elkin obviously is dogged on wanting the team to win, and unfortunately isn't doing the only thing he should be doing in order to make sure the team wins, which is fuck off and leave the team alone and let the board stay out of it for a change for the first time in over 2 decades. But instead, he seems to want to do what they always do, which is just replace the team principal. Now, the only thing that would make that a good decision in this situation is for them to bring in Horner who gets what he wants. Because a Horner who gets what he wants at Ferrari is going to be, in my way of looking at this, my thinking, the only way Horner gets there is if he is given complete control over the team from in the day-to-day roles, complete control over who the drivers will be, complete control over who the staff will be, and a 5 or 6 year deal where essentially he gets left alone by the board and that his review is after 5 years or something like that. That would be the only way I could see him go there, unless he's just trying to make a ton of cash very, very quickly over 2 years to buy out another team, which, knowing Horner, who knows? Or maybe he just wants the challenge of saying, look, I can turn Ferrari around when no one else could. I think that's the only way I could see it happening. The only thing that keeps racking at me that makes me think he won't want to go there is that realistically, when he left Red Bull, he left at a time where he was trying to garner control from a board. There was a board really pushing at Horner to kind of, give up some of his control. And I still think Horner's going to want skin in the game at whatever team he goes to. And that's just not going to happen at Ferrari. And given how Ferrari weren't willing to open the checkbook and give up control for Newey, I just don't see them doing it with Horner either. And for that reason, I don't see him going there. But I guess maybe it just depends what deal they give him, and he might just take it as an interim step to figure out what he's going to do. And if he turns the team around, it'll make him one of the greatest team principals. He already is one of the greatest, but probably the greatest team principal of all time if he manages to turn that shit heap around. The other one is Aston Martin, of course, which everyone has been going on about. And this is a very, very different way of looking at things, because Aston Martin very much could give Horner skin in the game, especially now that the Saudis are more and more coming in with Aramco. And I think there's a good opportunity for the Saudis to buy out another big stake. And because of the way they invest, give a huge amount of control to Horner without needing to worry about, the finances of it, essentially. So I think in terms of giving him a stake, that's not a huge issue. And I think it could be done. I think Lawrence Stroll just wants to win regardless. So bringing someone like Horner in would be the best way for him to win. And I think that Horner realistically would look at a team like that and think to himself that this has everything I want. One, it has all the ingredients to beat Red Bull, which is probably first on his agenda. It has all the ingredients it has to win, which is probably second on his agenda. And it has some of the best staff in the game. And on top of that, they've got a works engine deal, something that he wanted to have for a long time, and it's with Honda, who he was very, very close with. So I could see all of the reasons of him going there. I'm just not sure they would want to give up the percentage of control that he would want. Now, that could be worked around. Like if he goes in there and says, look, if we're every year that we win a title, or every year that we compete for this or X or Y, you let me buy out a little bit more and the Saudis will back it and so on. So I guess it could be done. I think it could be a good fit. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't click for me. And it's not for the reason that I think most of F1 Twitter thinks it won't happen, which is, well, Newey's there and Newey left because of Horner. Like, that's just patently false. It's a complete misunderstanding of everything, of how that kind of breakup, if you want, happened. And I think if you believe that, you're just buying into some Dutch narratives. But essentially, Newey didn't leave just because of Horner. You know, it wasn't just because of what Horner did. I'm sure in small part he didn't like what Horner did, allegedly, and so on. But the main reason that he left, from my understanding, from everything I've seen, is because of the political shit show that went on afterwards. The firefight between Horner and the Austrian side of the company, and how they kept fighting at each other, and everything was in the press and there was questions all day, every day. Newey likes the quiet, likes to sit back, likes to focus on the sport and the technical. He doesn't get caught up in the politics. He doesn't get caught up in rumors. And he was getting caught up in that every single day. Every question was about that. And there was just this political shit show between the two. And given he was already kind of semi-retired at the team anyway, there was no reason for him not to leave. So while Horner's actions might have been the spawning point, the place for Jos and the Austrian side to really dig into and get to Horner, it was the political shit show that went on after that. And Horner was the one who kind of stayed silent in that afterwards. It was the Austrian side that kept kicking things up. So that's what he was more annoyed with by the end, from my understanding. And that makes sense, given the two of them are clearly still friends. They're going to events together, they talk together and so on. I think the more interesting piece of him going to Aston would be, how do you then set that team up? I mean, Newey having the complete technical leadership and no interference with the technical side, Horner would be happy with that. He's used to that. It wouldn't bother him. I think the bigger issue would be, you've got Andy Cowell there, who's a very, very capable guy, and I don't think you want to lose Andy Cowell. So the question would be, do you make Horner CEO of the company and keep Andy Cowell as team principal? And will he want to do that? Because that's kind of a step down. As far as I remember, he's currently CEO and team principal. So he would have to kind of give up part of his leadership and just look after the team principal side. I don't know if he'd want to do that. Do you make Horner just team principal? I don't know if Horner wants to do that. Maybe he does. I'm not sure. That's the bigger kind of issue for me, is how does that structure work? Because I don't think you want to lose Andy Cowell, because I think when it comes to integrating the engine and getting all that together, he's a guy you want to keep around there. So that's the bigger question for me. I still think it's going to be Alpine personally. It just has a better fit for me in everything. I think it's in a situation where Horner can really take advantage, get a lot of stake in the team and really build it back up. And it's got a lot of the ingredients there to win. It's just got French management, which is always shit. Subscribe.